This video discusses preferred stock, and because we've already talked about in a previous video how to record the issuance from a journal entry perspective about preferred stock, this one focuses on characteristics of preferred stock as well as the calculation of preferred stock dividends. First, understand that preferred stock isn't necessarily preferable. Preferred stock is a term that's used to denote that it has different characteristics, or at least potentially has different characteristics than that of common stock. So common stock, we talked about some basic rights that typically come with that. Preferred stock may have some of those same basic rights, but it often has different rights associated with it or different characteristics that may be preferable to the type of investor interested in those rights or characteristics. So again, you have to consider what is your strategy or what is your goals with investing in a company. One common characteristic that's different with preferred stock is that its voting rights may be different. Sometimes preferred stock can have what we call super voting rights, where it has multiple number of votes per share that's held, versus common stock might just have a one-for-one right. But oftentimes, preferred stock may have no voting rights, and that voting rights may be given up in exchange for other rights that, again, may be preferable to a certain type of investor. Preferred stock often come with the characteristic of a fixed rate of dividend. Oftentimes this is illustrated as a percentage of par value, so that we might calculate a dividend as the percent of par value. Let's say it was 5% of par value times the par value. For instance, let's say it's $1 per share for a par value, and then multiply by the number of shares. Let's say maybe there's, 100 shares. This would be how we might calculate the rate or the amount of dividends that preferred stock shareholders are afforded. Another common characteristic is priority. Preferred stock typically takes preference or priority over common stockholders in distributions of things like dividends or liquidation of the company. And so preferred stock shareholders would be paid prior to common stock shareholders. As it relates to dividends, this is often referred to as the current dividend preference. And one final characteristic that we'll mention regarding preferred stock is the cumulative feature. And this is really something that makes preferred stock preferable to certain types of investors, is that if a preferred stock is cumulative, that would imply then that even when dividends are not declared in a given year, because remember, dividends are optional. A company doesn't have to declare dividends, but if they do declare them, then they become a liability. But even when dividends are not declared, because preferred stock has fixed rate dividends, if there is a cumulative feature associated with the preferred stock, then dividends will grow in what we call dividends in arrears. And then when you combine this with this idea of priority for the current dividend preference, this means that dividends will grow at a fixed rate each year, so they will accrue or grow in arrears. And because of the priority feature, that would imply then that the dividends to preferred shareholders have to be paid prior to those of common shareholders. So this cumulative feature will accumulate the dividends that weren't declared in the past, and all of those then have to be paid prior to the common shareholders getting anything. Let's look at an example to apply this. Let's say that a company, we're looking at 4 years, a company declares no dividends in the first 2 years. And let's say in 2018, they decide to declare $8,000 in dividends. And let's say in 2019, they decide to declare $10,000 in dividends. So with the information that we have above here, we'll say preferred stock is 6% with a par value of $20 and number of shares of 2,000. So to calculate the fixed rate, again, using these characteristics, fixed rate of dividends here, we would take 6% multiplied by $20 par value multiplied by 2,000. And this gives us $2,400 for each period for preferred stock's fixed rate of dividends. Now, remember, in 2016-17, there was zero dividends declared. So because dividends are optional, they're not legally required to be paid to preferred stock or common stock here. And so no one gets any dividends. But if we have the cumulative feature, these dividends at this fixed rate go into arrears status. So we record 2,400, or at least keep track outside. They're not a liability, so we don't actually do a journal entry, but we record 2,400 in each of those 2 years, even though no dividends were declared. And then in 2018, when dividends are declared, so there's 8,000 of dividends declared, we pay out these dividends in arrears to preferred stock before common stock gets anything. What's more is, because it's a fixed rate, preferred stock also gets their fixed rate for that year as well. So effectively, we have 2,400 paid 3 times. This gives us a total of 7,200. So preferred stock will get 7,200, and they get it before common stock because they have priority. Then common stock gets the leftover of 800. You could have preferred stock in what we call participating feature, but again, that's sort of an intermediate concept. In 2019, $10,000 in dividends are declared, and again, preferred stock has this fixed rate of 2,400. So preferred stock is going to get 2,400, and then common stock will get the remainder of 7,600. Keep in mind, these dividends and arrears only exist if we have the cumulative feature for preferred stock. If there's no cumulative feature, then we don't have dividends and arrears. And also keep in mind that we don't actually journalize those dividends and arrears, but we do track them so that we know how much is required to be paid to preferred stock before common stock.